You are listening to the podcast of Ice and Fire, episode 92 for the week of December 2nd, 2012. As usual, this is Amin.
And this is Kyle.
And today we are joined by a very special guest, Jason Walden from Fantasy Flight Games, game producer of A Game of Thrones, the second edition. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, nice to be on, guys.
Good. Yeah, welcome to the halls of House Manwoody.
I'm always curious what it looks like, and I get to find out for sure.
Yeah.
It probably looks like your room.
Strangely.
And during the interview, anytime, feel free to dig into. We have lemon cakes. We got some Dornish red, Arbor Gold. We got all sorts of food and wines from the books here. So
George would be proud.
Yeah.
Someday, I mean, you're actually going to have to mail all of our guests this stuff. You know that.
Oh, I have been mailing them, but I think the border patrol has been stopping.
Oh, okay, that's what it is.
Plundering the lemon cakes. Yeah, and blood oranges. We got lots of blood oranges here, as usual. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're just going to get to know about Jason a bit before we jump into the board game. So just to start off, how and when did you get into the Song of Ice and Fire book series?
I've always been a big geek into a lot of fantasy fiction. And so even before I started FFG, I was just getting into the series. I started right after Feast came out. So I was late to that show. But it was coincidence, actually, that I had just got into the series and really got into it and really started breaking it down before I was hired at Fantasy Flight Games. So, yeah, it's probably been about 4 or 5 years now that I've been into it.
Well, it's perfect timing, I think. You're old enough that you're not one of the newbies, but you didn't have to wait so long for the...
No, yeah. I wasn't tainted by the wait, no.
Yeah.
Well, you said you picked it up right after Feast came out, so you got the full... Or you started reading right after Feast came out?
It was maybe a year or two after Feast came out, so...
Okay. So you only had 4 years to wait instead of 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. We always like to ask as well, who's your favorite character in the series?
Well, obviously there's a lot. I just, every time, I don't want to like him, but every time he comes up, I'm fascinated by his chapters, and that's Stannis. Everything about Stannis, I want to know more. And I don't know if that makes him my favorite character. Like, I don't want to be friends with the dude, and I kind of die someday. But I'm really curious about his stories.
One of our biggest listeners, FT Ward, is a big fan of Stannis and a big player of the board game. So you've just impressed him. Now.
You just sold a board game right there.
In a world filled with so many just strange interactions and strange motivations, he's just so pragmatic that he's just so black and white that it kind of just is almost comforting to actually have that black and white line in this story, which is normally so gray.
A Dance with Dragons made me like Stannis a lot because he's fighting the good fight up there. He's the most honorable choice up there and the most appealing of what's left.
And also, I mean, when you're talking anti-Lannister, because I hate the Lannisters. I'm sorry if I offended any there, but I hate the Lannisters.
Good. So we'll get into that later with my theory of FFG hates the Lannisters.
I knew that was coming, I'm sure. But with the whole anti-Lannister thing, I mean, this with the Starks gone, I have to root for Stannis being the last, bastion of hope.
Yeah, and I liked that the Stannis in Dance with Dragons was away from his wife and away from Melisandre, and we saw the true Stannis, I think. Like, when he's with Melisandre, he sometimes goes the wrong way, I think.
He'd rather be stuck in a blizzard than hear those two cackle at him.
Yeah.
So is he the rightful king in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, clearly. I think there is from our perspective, he's absolutely the rightful king. I mean, obviously it's a lot harder to convince other people that Joffrey is illegitimate or that Tommen is illegitimate, but from our perspective, yeah, he is.
Yeah. I mean, he's next in line, and Dany, I mean, women haven't traditionally inherited in the realm. There's ways that they can, but, just if you went for just the easiest choice, it would be Stannis in terms of there. So yeah.
Yeah, and as far as the Targaryens, in my opinion, they lost. It's over.
Yeah.
Sorry, you have no right. It's done.
And see, Stannis is pairing up with the Stark supporters, and if you're a Stark supporter, then you like that. So
yeah, which I am. So
good. Okay. Now another question is, what is your favorite theory, if any? Because some people are not into theories. As an example, who do you think Jon Snow's parents are?
The John parenthood thing is kind of been done a lot. Then I'm just kind of letting it play out. I'm not. I just almost don't care anymore. It's been so been so much talked about it.
Yeah.
There are certainly tons of theories though that I am interested in. I mean, the Robert Strong thing is interesting. Just like the
you
whole
know the theories. If you know Robert Strong, okay, you're one for theories. That's good.
yeah, like what
Excellent.
the heck is he Frankenstein? Like what's going on there? It's just I'm really curious what the end of that one is. It's probably small and not that really interesting in the end, but
Yeah.
I mean, if it really is who we think it is, that's pretty frightening. So
Yeah,
it's kind
it
of cool.
is.
I'm pretty sure it's who we think are. There's just question is, does he have a head or not? We don't know that, but
Yeah.
but I think he has a head.
I mean, we saw like he kind of hinted at it with George kind of hinted at it with like the whole small Paul thing when he became a white.
Yeah.
And it was just freaky to see something that strong and huge, just completely unstoppable.
Yeah.
And so I really want to see where it goes. If that really is Gregor, like, okay, you couldn't stop him in life. Like, how the heck are you going to stop him when he's an undead?
I know.
That's
Well,
gonna
you
be
have
exciting.
to pull in the Hound from retirement to deal with that.
They'll have to make the Red Viper undead too,
Ooh,
Oh, that would be awesome.
that would be awesome. Yeah.
because his face got caved in too. So
Hey,
just take his head off and bring him back.
They'd probably still be sleeping with like everything too at the same time.
Oh jeez. Finally, the Red Viper would be into necrophilia instead of just everything else. Jesus.
So
Seriously, tap that.
actually,
Yes, she would.
someone was Ashley, who's on our podcast as well, was like talking about maybe like in the last bit when Cersei gets saved by like Sir Robert. She's kind of like, oh, Sir Robert, and like getting an affection for him. So
Oh God.
let's see.
I don't even want to think about
Yeah.
that.
Do you have you watched the HBO adaptation TV show?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much. I mean, as far as the story goes, I'm not really looking at it for a story, which is probably different from most people who haven't read the books or haven't really got into the books. I mean, I've heard the story. I know the story. I don't need story. What I want to do is I want to see it. And so I want them to show me what the Battle of Blackwater looks like because I already know what it actually was. So
I kind of agree in the sense that like we all know what the story is. I like to see those scenes, those key moments in the books that I love. I love to see that on screen. And if we get like the Red Wedding, for example, like we all want to see that on screen. We know it's coming, but we want to see it on screen. So
and one of my favorite parts, and I make sure I do this, is I watch it with somebody who hasn't read the book, and then I'm like like the whole at like last or second to last episode of season 1, I'm not watching the TV. I'm just watching their face as Eddard gets his head cut off. Because I just want to see that, that I want to relive that reaction that I first had when I read it,
Is this TV show? I mean, even the books, but is the TV show popular at Fantasy Flight Games? Are people watching it over there? Or?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Should have a party, like a viewing party there. Live YouTube of their reactions. But,
There you go.
I mean, there isn't a person there who hasn't read the books 5 times, so it's like
This
that's
sounds like a place I want to hang out at.
another reason why Fantasy Flight Games is my favorite game company. It may also be the only board game company I know about, but
Where are you guys based?
Roseville, Minnesota. It's a suburb of Minneapolis.
okay. So this is gonna be like a board game themed podcast. We're gonna talk about the board game. Just curious about your background, like how and when did you get into gaming, board gaming, and otherwise?
I've always considered myself a gamer. Like I played a lot of video games and making up games in the backyard with my friends, but I never really got into like this level of board games until college. I went to school actually for video game design and development.
Cool.
I went to school for I got a bachelor's degree in psychology first, and then I went again for another bachelor's in video game design and development. While I was in school, I had a teacher that, and again, this is video game design, but in order to kind of open our minds to the concepts of design, he whipped out some really big board games. And he said, in fact, they were FFG board games. They were, I think it was World of Warcraft, the board game, which is this massive box of, whoa, it's got like a 40-page rule book. I mean, I've never seen anything like this before. Doom, the board game, was another one that they whipped out. So he shows us these board games, and we as a class had to kind of break them down and analyze them, and that just opened my eyes, and I said, I want more. So I did. There was a board game club at school, and I joined that, and just spiraled out of control after that, to the point that even upon graduation, I said, screw this video game stuff, I want to do the board games.
Wow.
So how did you transition from that program and your interest to actually working with FFG, and how would you recommend people who are interested in maybe going in a similar direction?
Well, we had to get we have to have in order to graduate from the program, we have to have an internship at the end, and I looked around at some various places to get one, and then like I said, I was interested in board games at this time, and when I found out that FFG, one of my favorite board game companies, was local, I said, "Wow, I got to try this." So I kept bugging them. I made some contacts there. I made at that time we had a playtest. They had a playtest coordinator, so I went through him and I said, "I want to help you playtest." And so I once a week I would go to the facility and playtest games with them. And through that connection, he helped me eventually get an internship. And through the internship, I got a job.
So, like in all things, networking is important in this industry.
Very. Yeah. Almost entirely. Like that's. Yeah, I cannot emphasize enough networking within the industry. I mean, go to the convention. If it depends on what you want to get into. Like, if you want to get into board games, for example, go to conventions and go to the parties after the conventions and go to the clubs. And there's so much networking going on at those conventions. It's just necessary to hang out with the actual designers themselves.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to get into what Fantasy Flight Games has done with Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones. Specifically, we're talking about Game of Thrones, the board game, but we're just going to, here's a chance for you, Jason, to tell us about the various games and projects that Fantasy Flight Games has done in this area.
Yep, we've had the license for Game of Thrones for a while, way before I started, early 2000s. I believe it came out. I believe we acquired the license, and I'm not entirely sure about this, but I believe it was right after the first book. So, anyways, we have created a couple different games based on this license. We have the Game of Thrones board game, which is in its second edition. The first one came out in about 2000. We have the Game of Thrones card game, which is a ongoing kind of collectible card game. We also have an HBO version of that, so you can get it with HBO stills based on the HBO series, or you can get it with our commissioned artist. We have art for the regular one. I also worked on one called Battles of Westeros, which is a tactical minis game, which recreates the battles from the books and lets you create your own battles or play some fictitious ones. Kind of, it's got a board and a bunch of little figures that you, basically recreate the battles. We've got a couple art books that are filled with art from the Song of Ice and Fire. That's it for now, I think.
Are those under FFG? Like, what are they titled? Those art books? Just art.
The art books, I think they're called The Art of Song and Ice and Fire, Volume 1 and Volume 2.
Oh, I actually have those, but I didn't know if they were from FFG.
Yeah,
those are beautiful.
Yeah, we published those. Yep.
Well, that makes sense because I think a lot of some of the artworks have been used in the cards as well, or there's kind of like overlapped if they all belong to FFG or they organized it.
Most of it's come from our games that we've done. We've commissioned the art for the game and then assembled it into books. We also have an event that we do once a year called the Days of Ice and Fire, where we assemble all of these games that we have and let everybody come to our event center and play a bunch of games. And there's promo stuff and lectures and play with designer series and a whole bunch of stuff goes on to those. The next one of those is April 12th.
Where is that? Is that Minnesota as well?
It's our location, which is the event center in Roseville, Minnesota.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah, I think I've seen that mentioned on the forums.
Yeah, like FT Ward and a couple of our listeners actually attended last year and I had a really good time. And that's where he bought an extra copy of the variant for me and got some stuff from there. So we already have people going that and definitely will come again this year.
A couple years ago, we had George Martin attend.
Nice. Did he actually play any of the games? Did he sit down and school some folks?
I got to talk to him a little bit, and I asked him. I asked him if he ever plays any of these games that he obviously approves. I mean, he sees the games, he approves of them. But I asked him if he actually plays them, and he's like, "Nah, I'm not too much of a gamer." So.
Well, I think he has played games in the past. Either like D&D or whatever, and to the point where he was like getting addicted to it. So it may be good that he's not playing them, so he can focus on the books and not play the board game all the time.
Fun. But you said the Battle of Westeros game had like the miniature pieces and whatnot. He probably has all those somewhere in his house because he likes miniatures and things.
We send him copies, so yeah, he definitely has it. He's seen it.
Nice.
I heard that the Westeros battle game is actually a nice introduction for people interested in that kind of miniature type game because it's big, but it doesn't take up a massive table or something, right?
No, it doesn't. It's all condensed onto a board. So it's a board the size of a little bit larger than the Game of Thrones board game board, but not much. It's got a bunch of expansions that you can continue to expand it as much as you want, so it kind of has a lot of replayability there. It has a rough time, like the scenarios. It's based on scenarios. There's scenarios in the game that kind of funnel you into what battle you're playing, and those are time independent. So we pick them from all over the place. But
is the Trident in there, or what kind of battle?
Yeah. Well, no, not the Battle of the Trident. Let me think of any off the top of my head. The Battle of the Green Fork. That's one you're referring to, one where they ploy Tywin away from Rob's host. If you look, it's funny when you actually work on this game that's supposed to be centered around battles, and you start to analyze Game of Thrones based on the battles that occurred. There's a lot of battles, but they're really unspecific. George doesn't spend a lot of time on them. Like he mentions them in passing. It's like some of the few, like Whispering Wood, for example. We have that one. We have a pretty detailed account of what happens there. But
yeah, but there's a lot of Rob's battles that happen just during Clash of Kings when he's not even around. Then I'm sure you guys are like, oh God, what do we put into this one?
We just released the Baratheon expansion, which allowed us to do Blackwater Bay, and that was awesome. We got we actually commissioned a whole board that looks like the Battle of Blackwater Bay with ships on it and everything. It's really cool.
Awesome.
Does it have a giant chain, or does it have Bronn with a flaming arrow?
We have catapults with fire and burning ships, and Stannis has to cross over, and it's tons of fun.
Oh, I have to look into this Westeros battle game because that's missing. I know that the card game is immensely popular and well reviewed, and I know it's good, so I definitely need to get into it. But what I like about it as a board game is I get the board game and that's it, and then there's expansions that you don't have to keep buying cards. It's not like a Magic the Gathering or something, right? It's a little bit more limited than that, right? Like
if you want a complete experience with the card game, buy the HBO one. It's much more condensed and complete.
Yeah. So you can jump in and play.
Yep.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay. So what we're going to talk about specifically today is a Game of Thrones, the board game, specifically the second edition. Do you want to give us a quick intro about it, if you're able, or we can, but definitely if you're ready. What is the board game and what do you do in it?
Okay, I'll try not to ramble. That gets kind of lengthy. Basically, each player, you can play 3 to 6 players, and each player plays one of the great houses: Stark, Lannister, Baratheon, Greyjoy, Tyrell, or Martell.
Yeah.
And the objective of the game is to be the first to control a certain number of territories. I hesitate to do this, but it might help some readers. It's a territory acquisition game, so you're trying to take your little figures around the board and acquire more territories, similar to Risk. I know that the comparison is quite shallow, but it helps get a framework of what the game.
Oh, I used to tell people it's Risk without dice, but the only newbies who don't know, like Risk without dice.
So basically at the beginning of your turn, you're going to place orders, which are tokens, face down on the board. And each token tells the units that you have in that area what they're going to do that turn. Everything from attacking to defending to harvesting resources and such. And everyone simultaneously flips over their tokens. They're resolved in a certain order. And as you resolve them, you move your units around. That's the general gameplay. But the subtleties of the game, where it really, really shines, and where it's really hard to describe unless you're actually playing, is that this game is all about alliances and betrayals, which is obviously perfect for Game of Thrones.
Absolutely.
Plays in perfectly. It's kind of that whole meta game, that whole player interaction, looking somebody across the eye, in the eyes across the table, and saying, "I promise I will help you do this if you help me with this," and then completely lying to them and stabbing them in the back.
Yes, sounds like.
By the way, be careful playing this game with your boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse, because it could cause trouble if you.
or your boyfriend or girlfriend's parents. Like, do not do that. That's bad.
It's the diplomacy of this game is so great. I mean, some groups, like in our group, sometimes we even step out of the room for a second to talk about stuff because you can't have other people hearing about it, or we write messages down on paper. That sort of thing. Text.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, it gets that intense.
So the good thing about text or written messages is at the end of the game, you can actually look at them and see what kind of diplomacy was going on. It's kind of interesting to see that.
There's even a fake out if you're negotiating with somebody and all of a sudden you look at your phone and you're like, hold on. They don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, we had one guy that used to, when we did that fake out, he would just draw cartoon images of people and just give it to you. So you guys at FFG, you are playing the game beyond playtesting. You're still playing the game together sometimes, or with your friends, or?
I have. I've taken a break because I played it a lot over the course of development. But it's about time I get back into it because it's been out now for over a year. So.
There's no such thing as a permanent alliance. You can break a treaty or deal at any time, but From your experience, do you find that how good are people's word? Do they break it easily, or do people who hold their word, are they more successful, or how's that happen in your gaming group?
One of the toughest things about like keeping that design tight is when you're playtesting or kind of trying things out. For people who haven't done this before, they immediately try to be as honest as possible. Like they don't understand that lying is part of the game.
Yeah.
And so it plays out very rote, very very scripted, very very clean. And that's not the game. That's not the core experience. So you kind of have to whisper in people's ears, like, it's okay if you don't do what you just said you were going to do.
Yeah.
Or I'll literally be like, if I'm watching a playtest, I'll literally be like a devil in somebody's ear, and I'll say, you know what? That territory looks really juicy right now. I'm just saying. Just saying. And then you walk away and let them make the decision themselves. So.
So you get a lot of Ned Stark wannabes when they start off the game.
Yeah, but the experienced players immediately get if they know that has to happen, that you have to break and make alliances. So they usually crush the newbies. The game is not kind to new players playing against experienced players.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever seen a perfectly honest person win the game?
Yes. I like to look at it like the whole. If you're talking about honesty, you're talking about Ned Stark or Stannis. They're both honest men, but in completely different ways.
Yeah.
True.
I'm more of a Stannis in the game. Yeah, I'm not.
Me too. Yeah. I'll tell somebody, I'll be like, sorry, I have to do this to you. It just makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and that helps sometimes to be like blunt about it, or just to be like, hey, I'm going to take this territory. We can fight about it, or you might as well not back down or make an exchange. Or you have to play smartly. You don't make long-term alliances. You just make deals, single-turn deals. Nothing that like ties you too long. Over the course of many games, you get a net benefit. Like they know that you hold your word. You'll be able to collect taxes safely, the equivalent of the game. You'll be able to do things safely that over the long term helps you. But if you make deals that are too long, it's dumb because you can break the game. Because at certain points, if you have a deal, hey, I'm making a 6-turn alliance, and you don't attack this guy, well, the game's over. The game is very subject to ending really quickly if you're not willing to attack each other. So even if you are gonna betray your word all the time, it just helps to do shorter deals. Don't do those 6-turn alliances.
Words of board game wisdom from me.
We can get into it now. We'll jump ahead because the other thing about the game is there's only one winner. It used to be possible to tie. It would never ever happen anyways, but there's only one winner. But as you said, sometimes people can, and this happens in all games, they can be out of it. They can be crushed. And what should they do at the point? What do you think they should do? Should they do everything possible to win? Should they try to pick someone, be kingmaker? And what's kingmaking and how much? And there's a big debate going on Boardgamegeek. So I was just curious to see what should somebody do who's out of it in turn 3 in a 10-turn game.
I personally, just me personally as a player in general with all board games, I don't personally like kingmaking unless it's as a result of something that player did to you previously in the game, and you're just enacting revenge.
Yeah.
Like revenge kingmaking is perfectly fine because it's built into those type of games.
Yeah.
It's you broke your alliance with me, and this is the result of that. I am going to just spend the rest of the game making your life a living hell.
Kingmaking in the sense kingmaking? I'm just not familiar with the term.
In general, I mean, you're talking about a term that is, I have clearly lost the game. I can't win. There's not mathematically a way for me to win the game, or at least you think that. Sometimes it's perceived, but it's not actually true. But you think you've lost. So what you do is you decide somebody at the table who's going to win, and you back them. And you just back them and back them and back them for no other reason than that's it. That's all you have left to live for. I mean, and in a way that actually keeps you interested in the game. You don't want to just quit. If that's what you're invested in, I mean, that's like a new victory condition for you. You've changed the victory conditions of the game, and that's actually kind of cool. In the middle of the game, you were able to mod it to the point where you're still enjoying it despite losing.
See, the thing about kingmaking is such a broad term. If somebody betrays you and you spend the entire game attacking them, like in revenge, that could be called kingmaking, but I see nothing wrong with it because you're fighting back. Another guy's going to win. Screw him. I'm just going to keep attacking this person because you're attacking, and it's up to people to do it. But if you go to the other spectrum, if you just give up your territories to another person, there's nothing the rest of the people can really do about that. And I think that's unacceptable in a game like this because there's nothing they can do. If you just empty your capital and give it up to other people, then it's done. Then you've thrown the game for all other 5 people. So there's a wide spectrum of activities. And if you're just actively attacking somebody for revenge, great. If you're giving up your territories, no. And then there's that debate about middle. How far is permittable kingmaking and what's like just being spoiled and ruining the game for all other 5 people playing it. So
I don't know. I feel and someone who doesn't play board games very often, I feel like it'd be more fun to back the guy, to back like the next lowest power and see if together you could take out the big guns. I feel like that would be more intriguing to me. I don't know. Does that ever happen?
It should. That's the way it's supposed to happen. I don't know if it always happens that way. That's what we added a victory track in the second edition, right? It wasn't in the first edition. There was no victory tracks. It's intentionally designed so that you need to look at that track and say, who's winning? Let's get him.
Gotcha.
Because before, people used to arrange their units in ways to kind of hide how many strongholds they had. So because you had to always count. You always had to count how many areas do they have. But when you have the victory track, everyone's responsible for putting them in the right place, and so you can visibly see where they are. And but the other thing about kingmaking is almost never are you completely out of the game if you play the game properly. Even if you got crushed, you should be, hey, I'm getting crushed here. Someone help me. This guy's going to win, and then use the benefit of those help over the next turns to get back into the game. And plenty of people who've stuck with the game in turn 10 could end up winning if you haven't given up. And if you play that poorly and you've lost, well, then just take it like that and next time play better.
Stop sucking.
Yeah. Fine to be mad about it, but don't get mad to the point that you're going to ruin the game.
There's each home territory has a printed icon that you control. You basically always control that unless somebody else does. So even if you're completely wiped from the board, you can beg somebody, please go take back my home realm, and I'm back in the game. And if I'm back in the game, I'll support you.
And we'll get into talk about player variants later, but one variant we had is if you lost everything except for your ships, you could beat your ships and turn them into footmen.
That's cool.
So you could keep fighting on land. But okay, let's see what we got. Good debate we're having, a good discussion. Okay. Where do we have a list?
Amin is jazzed right now.
Yeah.
He is pumped up.
Yeah.
You like this game, huh?
Oh, I like this game. Dude, even if you get this game and you play it occasionally, it's so worth it because in board gaming in general, you put down $30 to $50, and how many hours of enjoyment do you get out of it, right? It's just so worth it.
Yeah, this is intriguing. I have a lot. Christmas is coming up. I got a lot of friends. We all like to get together and play games and video games and stuff. And I think this might be on the. I think this is the top of the list for this year for the game we want to get. So this is gonna be fun.
So at what point did you get involved in the board game? Because there was a first edition, some expansions in the second edition. Did you just come on board for the second edition?
Yeah. I started at FFG in 2010. So I was involved in the second, but nothing of the first.
So Christian T. Peterson, who designed the game, was he involved at all in the second edition?
Oh yes, a lot.
Right.
This is the original. The first edition was one of first of his major publications, along with Twilight Imperium, which is another really big game. Those two are he's very, very close to those. So he wanted to make sure that he protected this game. So yes, he was very heavily involved.
I haven't played Twilight Imperium, but from what I heard, it's a really good game. But you are familiar with the first edition, right? Like you've played, or
yes.
You know about. Okay, one way that I characterize the second edition, I want to see if you agree or disagree, is the second edition is generally more attack based or just action filled. There's more things going on, making it more exciting. I don't know if you saw that. My question in the files,
yeah, definitely. I think that was from the get go. I think an example we didn't include everything from the first edition. I didn't make sure that only certain things could fit, and one of the things we cut were the fortifications.
Yeah.
And the reason why is as we're playing that first edition and we're analyzing what can go, what can stay, fortifications just slowed things down. I mean, they worked. There's nothing wrong with them, but we wanted a faster paced, shorter game, a game that was, like you said, more attack driven, more aggressive. So it was entirely it's true and it's intentional.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. They kind of bogged things down, and even to the point that we weren't even using that much because it costs so much to make them. Like what you had to do, Kyle. Like in this game, at some points you basically are doing something like taxing, getting money, and you need money to be powerful. But instead of getting that money, you could put it into building a fortification. But it just wasn't worth it even sometimes. So I don't think they were missed in the second edition.
No.
But one thing I was curious about though is there was no option to, because when the expansions gave you a problem in the original game mainly was sometimes you there's only certain times when you can get troops, Kyle. Like you can muster troops. A card comes up and you get troops, but sometimes that card wouldn't come up and you'd be stuck with the same armies you had to start. So you'd be fighting with these small armies. Second, the one expansions gave you ability to muster at other points. Second edition lets you do that as well, but there's no ability to affect supply, which is not as important as troops. But I was just curious if you knew why there was no option to upgrade supply.
Well, to clarify, the first edition had an expansion that included a component that lets you, for one time, bring troops onto the board. Now you can do it all the time if you have the right number.
You had two of them,
potential.
but still, two times maximum. So and that makes sense. Like you can get lots of troops, and then you can fight more. So it fits into the more action based and stuff. But I mean, you can't change the supply. You supply to the cards.
Supply is a very valuable resource that I don't think we really wanted to mess around with too much. It wasn't something that we wanted to let players modify that. Obviously, for the person who has more supply than his opponent, we wanted to reward him. You've worked hard at getting this supply. That card came up. It all worked out perfectly. If we get everyone the potential to affect that supply, it doesn't mean as much.
Okay.
We wanted it to mean a little more.
And it's
important. Doesn't first
yeah.
so.
Okay. I mean, and it's not as big as a thing as if you couldn't bring armies.
No.
So
that kind of ceases. You can't really play the game if you can't bring armies out.
Yeah.
Personally, what I really enjoy is the way those Westeros decks are stacked. Those are the cards that affect when supply, when mustering come up. The way those are stacked kind of tells the story of how that game is going to play. I mean, I've played multiple games where the supply card just barely doesn't even come up, and that's interesting because that game totally changes. It's completely different than any other game that you've played of that game, because in this specific game, if that supply card doesn't come up, things have changed, and things are much more valuable and more static than they would be. Whereas if a supply card comes up, maybe for example near the beginning of the deck, it kind of changes the way the game is played, and I really like that.
It makes the game more replayable because no game is exactly the same.
Exactly.
And even in the first edition, at times when you wouldn't even get armies, it was still kind of fun. You're still fighting with small armies, and that would just change how you did it. But you didn't want to do that all the time, so it's nice that you can make your armies. Okay. Do you know who came up with the Tides of Battle idea?
That was me.
What I like about that is you can win a battle and you can still lose guys afterwards, which makes more sense. That's how battles go on. You lose people even if you win.
The simple reasoning behind what the Tides of Battle was without Tides of Battle, Game of Thrones is actually very mathematical. There are abilities and stuff that you can see, but everyone's hand is open knowledge, so you can see, you can do the math and kind of break it down to say you have 2 footmen on that spot, and when you play your house card, you can only play a 2. So all I have to do is play my 4, and I automatically win. There's a lot of automatics, automatic winning, automatic losing. It's very calculable, and for some people, that's not really the experience they're looking for. They don't want that super mathy kind of calculated game. They want more random, like, oh crap, hole! Did you see that? That was amazing. So we don't have dice. So that was one way to do that, would be insert dice, but we didn't have dice, so we inserted cards instead, which relatively simulated a dice mechanic.
Cool.
So what do you have? Do you have a battle in the game, and then after the battle's done, you have a card that determines if you lose extra troops, or how does that play out?
Well, so the way combat works, really simply, you count the number of troops you have on the board, and they give you a certain number of strength. From that, you both simultaneously secretly select a card from your hand and add that number of strength as well, and you have the same number of strength in your hand of cards. So I can see that you don't have many of your big cards left, so I play my big card, and I'm just going to win. What the Tides of Battle do is, on top of that whole process, they also add in a random card from a common pool.
Okay.
That also adding value on. So I may be beating you by 1, but then we both draw Tides of Battle cards. I draw a 0 and you draw a 2. Well, now you're beating me. And it's simulating like the random. Like it's not as swingy as it sounds. Most of the deck is actually 0s and 1s, so it's not going to change too many of the battles. But every once in a while, somebody will draw a 3 or a 2, which really kind of swings it. And it represents the factors of battle that you can't really take into account: weather and attrition, and the local populace rising up, things like that.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Yeah, it's nice. Like you said, I agree with that. With a total random element you throw in, that'll be like give you the oh no. Did you see that kind of moment? That's really interesting.
And then what Amin was referring to was the some cards, very few. I think there's only 2 in the entire deck of Tides of Battle have skull on them, and a skull indicates that you are forced to lose troops whether you win or lose. So it's kind of this ultimate war sucks, everybody dies kind of card.
You have these cards, you have like these generals, and you play, and then when you finish them, they would all cycle back. Now they don't. Was that your idea, or whose idea was that?
Yep, that was mine again. You did not like that, you said, or you do like
I don't like it because I'd like to get my cards back. I'd like to fight. I'd like to fight.
it was an intentional way of covering our bases as far as if there was one card that was just too strong. We're saying this card's amazing and it's just going to crush everyone. It was a way to say, well, yeah, it is amazing, but guess what? You only get to use it one out of every, 14 battles, 12 battles? Can't do my math right, but like you're not going to use it that much basically. So by doing that, you're able to control how powerful it really is.
It's an interesting effect in the game because what I used to play in a way that I would always save my high cards because you want to throw them away and then play my highest one last. But now you can't play. You got to play a little bit different. You maybe use it second last and some other card and cycle back. So looks like we have somebody joining us here. Just give me a sec. Everything going good so far? You need a drink or watching a break?
I could use a drink.
Yeah.
There you go. Take it.
All right, be right back.
Okay, I'm going to pull Mimi in. Mimi's here, so I'm going to pull her in.
Yeah.
This is going good, though, Kyle, right?
Yeah, you know what you're talking about. I'm just...
and then when you play the board game, you can re-listen to this, and then...
I was going to ask some questions at the beginning, but you asked all the general questions. So I
sorry.
was like, okay, that's it. So,
well, we're going to get to chapters. Make sure you shine to the chapter.
Oh, Jesus. Yes.
Your chapter summary?
I don't have one, but it's a pretty easy chapter to summarize.
Hello?
How's it going?
Hi.
Good.
Hey, Mimi.
Sorry to interrupt. Let me get my...
Oh, he just went to get a drink. Let's make sure your thing's working. I hear, stuff.
You guys are driving him to drinking?
Yeah, we got him some Arbor Gold and Dornish Red, so...
Okay, you guys are getting that humming, right?
Yeah, we're getting the humming.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone now.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, I know. It's because I
Hold
lifted
it back. It could have been my headset.
Buddy?
Hey. We're just getting her mic working, Jason.
Is Jason's back? Cool. So this is Mimi, one of our other hosts.
Hello.
The other host.
Founding host of the podcast, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, here to provide a feminine perspective on a Game of Thrones.
That's a funny joke, I mean. Okay. All right, let me find... Are we doing the chapter reread, or what's going on?
We're almost there. We're definitely... You'll be able to contribute to that part. But
okay.
We've still got... We've gone over the board game and basic stuff, and now I'm just basically just drilling Jason on complicated questions, and he's giving good answers.
Okay. All right. Well, you continue to drill Jason, and I'll jump in.
God.
Not a fan of the game, Mimi?
No, I don't know actually a whole lot about it, so I'd like to know.
Mimi is she's into gaming and video gaming, that sort of thing, so she's into this kind of stuff. She'd be open to it, I think.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of
country though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are pretty split up. All right, so you don't have a chance to play together. That's too bad.
Oh man, if we ever met up though, that's what we do.
Yeah. I'm looking this up on Amazon right now. I want to buy it. Game of Thrones.
Use our Amazon affiliate link when you buy it.
True.
Okay. Yeah, no, I have a whole bunch of friends who are board game nerds, and they love this shit. So I really want to get into... This is a board game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, God. Why do we bring her in here?
You know what? I just wanted to make sure because... Shut up, guys. That's right, from Fantasy Flight Games. Okay, well, I wanted to make sure because there's a lot of different kind of games, like card games and stuff. So don't judge me.
There's a Game of Thrones card game, too.
Yeah. Talk about that.
Yeah.
All right, I mean.
Okay, so we're going back to the questions, and when the second edition came out, there was a little embarrassing problem. The board was warped. FFG did a great job helping with this, but they actually sent free boards to replace them. But I'm just curious what happened, and is it fixed now for future printings and sort of thing? Here's your chance to talk about it.
Yes. It was indeed a manufacturer issue. It was nothing to do with how it was produced or designed. It was just an error on the factory's part. They apologized. We had it fixed. It was only for a small portion of the first printing of the game, but it did pop up, obviously. So, but all the subsequent reprints are just fine. It had to do with, if you're curious, it has to do with a miscutting. Actually, it wasn't warping. It wasn't moisture or anything like that. It wasn't actually related to that. It was to put it simply, it was a miscut of the graphic that went over the board, which put undue pressure on certain seams and caused the board to kind of pull up. But yes, we have since provided replacements for anyone with these problematic boards, and they will continue to provide those if anyone hasn't contacted them yet. You can contact them at customer service at fantasyflightgames.com, and they will gladly give you another replacement. So
actually, I had that problem and I got the replacement. It's great. I still have the original board. Maybe it'll be worth something one day because it was early. Now, Fantasy Flight Games, another reason why I like it is they have really good customer service. I'm going to tell a story that happened around 2006 when I had the first edition. We were playing at a friend's house, and one of the Baratheon ships, fell down and a dog bit it in half. And when we asked FFG, like, can we send a replacement or can we buy one, right? And they're like, no, we'll just mail you. And they mailed us a free unit placement for it. So that's customer service for you. They didn't have to send us a ship.
That is a policy. If you lose it, break something, we will replace it.
Cool.
Oh, very cool. That's
guess-
nice to hear in this day and age.
Yeah.
Exactly. Are we going to skip those technical questions on the map, you thinking? Or do you have the comments? Do you have the file open, by the way, Jason, or do you have it print?
Yeah. Which question are you referring to?
Like, just why, like, there was a slight change in the map.
Oh, yeah, that's boring.
That's boring. Okay, let's skip that. Yeah, but why does Old Town suck? Because Old Town is good in the books and it sucks in the game.
Yeah, something needs to suck. It's Old Town.
Okay,
So
that's the old guys.
now, so for those who haven't even seen it, the board is just Westeros, correct? We don't have any of Essos or anything else.
No.
Was there ever a debate at the company to add anything, the free cities or anything like that?
Oh yeah, there was talk. I don't want to go into too much specifics, but yeah, I talked about it.
Guess it's hard to do it when the official map hadn't even come out yet by then. But very cool.
We
Maybe
know a
that'll
lot
be in
more
the
now,
next.
obviously. Yeah.
Yes, maybe that'll be in the next edition or whatnot.
Yeah.
It'll be 3 to 20 players by that point.
Yeah.
So, and just no, not really a question, but just a note I've noticed, and it's just games are coming down a lot to tie break now with the 6 players. Would you agree? And I find that interesting, but that's because it was changed that you need more areas.
Yeah, that was intentional. I mean, it was some subtle changes. We bumped it from 7 castles that you need to control back down to, or from 6 up to 7. So there's no reduction in number of players. Go ahead.
No, I was saying I think that's good because the six was kind of unstable. Like the game could end really quickly.
Yeah.
When you had 6.
You can sneak it.
Yeah.
You know, and with the combination of the victory track, like I mentioned earlier, like you can't really sneak that anymore. Like it really, really takes a lot of work to get that 7th castle.
Yeah.
And even if you look at the map, like some people analyze it based on, oh look, such and such house can get 6 castles easily. Well, sure they can, but where does their 7th come from?
Yeah.
And then that starts to become a much more complicated issue.
And you don't want to peak too quickly in this game. You become powerful too quickly, and you get picked on by everybody else. So.
Good to fly under the radar, pull a little Tyrell action.
Good to be second. Second most powerful, not in the first.
Yep. And ships are best at that too, like sneaking those attacks are really.
Yeah. Well, ships are incredibly powerful in this game. They've been weakened, thankfully, but especially in ships are powerful. So yeah, build ships when you play this game.
Damn it, I want to play it right now.
Yeah.
Very nice.
The artwork is really nice in this. Didn't you and I get some of these cards as a sample from?
I did, yeah, because
from FT Ward.
Oh, you got the cards as well. You do have the cards. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Now you have to get the board game. Yeah.
No, I definitely am going to. And I was just curious, would this be a board game to? I mean, for people who don't play board games at all, would it be an easy introductory?
I'm going to be honest and say no. Well, it's not hard to learn. I don't think.
Okay.
Maybe I'm biased, but I don't think it's hard to learn the rules. It's hard to learn the intricacies. So it's easy to learn, hard to master. One of those kind of games, I think. But
sure. I mean, yeah, the only thing I've ever played was the Pokemon Master Trainer board game, and I did that alone because nobody would play it with me. I would like to say I don't think it's as nuanced as this. I think, maybe it was a little simpler, but I would really like to play it, and I don't know if maybe repeated plays or something would help.
Well, I know people who have played the game. They've had kids who are 13, even from 13, they can play the game. It just depends on the person if they can handle that sort of thing. But
kids teaming up against mom and dad, take them out.
Okay, so let's just go back to exciting stuff. Does Fantasy Flight Game really hate House Lannister? And here's why I think, especially when the first edition came out, House Lannister would be steamrolled before there was an errata fixed, and they just generally get the short of this end of the stick. So do you guys really hate House Lannister?
I do, but that's totally irrelevant. I'm not allowed to make personal assumptions affect my game. So, but the thing to keep in mind with the House Lannister debate, first of all, it was a first edition issue that we tried to fix, and I think we did a fair decent job of addressing it a little bit, reducing Greyjoy's strength somewhat. Kind of took that thorn out of their side a little bit. But the other thing to keep in mind is that in a bigger picture, the game is very asymmetrical. It's supposed to be. It's a very asymmetric game. Each of these houses play very differently than each of the other houses. houses. And if you kind of bounce, if through subsequent plays you bounce around from house to house, you really feel it. You'll say, "Wow, I can't." I'm playing Martell for the first time, and this plays totally different than when I was playing Lannister or Greyjoy or Baratheon or whatever. So that asymmetry though actually came first and foremost from the geography. I mean, if you look at who the big players are, and we identified who the big houses were that we needed to include, and just so happens that some of them are right on top of each other. You thank George Martin for that, but he obviously wasn't making the universe for us. So with the home territories of Lannister and Greyjoy, they're practically right on top of each other, while like the Starks, Martells, and Baratheons much more isolated and secluded. But that's actually, I think the original game used that geometry and incorporated it in a way that gave each house its own feel and kind of gave them a style of play that kind of was fun to play with.
That sounds exciting, though, that people are, depending on what house you pick, you start off from a different position. And so I feel like most board games are just everybody starts off with the same. Everybody's the same. And depending on who you choose will dictate how you start the game off and how your battle strategies. And I think that sounds pretty intriguing.
And it also mimics the story a little bit, too. I mean, if you look at like House Martell, for example, they tend to play more defensive at first, which simply because they have to spend a few turns kind of spreading out into unclaimed territories, and they don't really have anybody right on their front doorstep. And that's thematically accurate. I mean, the war hasn't really reached their borders in the books yet. They're untouched. So they have a relative, albeit short-lived, peace in the board game. Whereas House Lannister, I mean, they're in the thick of combat and they're surrounded by enemies. It just so happens that Greyjoy did not side against the Lannisters in the books, but they very well could have. They were close.
They should have.
I think they should have, yes.
They should have done a lot of things.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's inherent in the nature of the geography and the map that you end up with the Greyjoy Lannister situation. And they live really close to each other, and they're going to fight over that territory unless they can come to a deal over it. And if you play Lannister, you got to play diplomatically. You have to talk to people and things. So
I personally, like, talking like deeper strategy, if you don't mind, I personally think the single strongest strategy in the game, as far as like a single isolated strategy, is the Stony Sept strategy, which there's a space on the board that Lannister, if they house a bunch of units into that single space, can defend, I think it's like 6 other territories surrounding it with a support order. Support order, for the to refresh, you put a support order into an area, and that area can add its strength to all the adjacent areas when there's a combat there, basically.
And there are there's other locations that are still critical support locations. Like there's key points on the map to either hold or support from or to raid, like that you will learn when you play the game, and you'll learn to covet those those areas. So based off we're the House Manwitty of podcasting, so we're just curious, why were there no House Manwitty cards in the board game, given that there was only 7 that could have been used, but it seems like you could put House Manwitty in there.
Yeah.
Clearly the most important house, yeah.
I know you guys love the house for different reasons. I personally like it for the iconography. I love their house sigil. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
A skull wearing a crown. I mean, if they're not like a biker gang of Westeros, you know.
Yeah.
Whenever we meet up for the first time, we're going to play this board game and then get trashed and then just give each other these prison tattoos of the House Manwitty sigil. That's the goal.
Nice. House Manwitty tattoo. There we go. The crown skull.
And maybe they'll include it in a later edition when House Manwitty wins the Iron Throne.
Yes.
I think they might be in the card game though. I might be wrong, but I think they might have been. There's like a Dagos Manwitty or something.
I think there might be 1 or 2 cards. Yeah.
So on the cover of the board game here, I'm looking at King's Landing, right?
Yes.
The box on the box. Yes. I haven't seen that piece of artwork before. Did you have a single artist that did everything, or do you have multiple artists working?
No. Almost all of our games have multiple artists. You can see in the credits, for example, who worked on what, if you're really curious. But yeah, the artists are spread throughout. That cover, I believe, if I'm correct, was, let me look at the credits here. I think it was Jed Ruzik. Yes, Thomas Jed Ruzik. He does a lot of our cover stuff. The cover artist is kind of a step above some of the interior artists. Because of the size of the piece.
It's absolutely gorgeous, that rendering.
Yeah.
And was that Baelor's Sept, the dome?
Yep.
Or
you can see Dragon Pit. You can see all 3 of the hills.
Beautiful.
Yep.
So the cards that you do have, Mimi, are actually from a Dance with Dragons variant.
That's
What you do is when you play the game, you set up the board in a way to match with the situation of Dance with Dragons, which is a variant that was released, like people could order it online cards. So just curious, were you involved with that, Jason? And how has been response and sales so far for that?
That's the second edition was a very collaborative effort. It was brought down to me as a assignment and a lot of feedback from a lot of different people. Whereas Dance of Dragons was my own idea and my own creation. Like I did that one entirely. It was a little story there. We have these Days of Ice and Fire, which is events that we bring all these people in and they play all this Game of Thrones related stuff. We like to give them promo material. So our marketing team came to me and they said, "Hey, I need some promo material for Game of Thrones board game, second edition. And what can you give me?" And I had this idea of what Dance of Dragons is. I as soon as I read the book, I said, I want to make this into the board game, but it was too late at that time. So I had this idea floating around in my head for a long time, and I basically said, if you can give me the financial go-ahead, I will give you an expansion because I've had it ready for months. So didn't take me long to put it all together, whip up the vision document and create it, do some play testing, commission the art, and away we went.
What I like about the variant is it's shorter and it encourages, like from the first turn you have diplomacy and battles. In fact, I'm kind of hooked on it because I don't feel like playing the 10-turn game anymore. I just want to play the 6 turns, and playing it right now is really good. And I want to congratulate you that for once House Lannister is not the worst house, it's House Stark. So he's changed it.
Yep. House Stark in quotations.
House Stark, aka Bolton.
Yeah. So, we couldn't change the backs of the pieces because obviously we didn't include tokens in this, and so it had to have the wolf on it. But well, the wolf wasn't really all that prevalent in that time period. So
and people
do a flayed wolf.
Yeah,
yeah.
People were really curious, like if there's any other plans for future variants to move into Essos, dragons, or that sort of thing.
I would love it, and that's it. That's all I can say. I don't know much else. I don't know much else to say about that.
Nice.
Okay, people, try to interpret that statement, maybe.
Yeah. Here we go.
And
scene.
Well, I guess your answer might be the same to this, but there was a 4-player expansion that was very good called the Storm of Swords. I still recommend it, but like, is there any idea for upgrading that to the second edition? Like, any comment, or again, no comment, no answer?
What was the question?
Storm of Swords expansion. Are you going to bring it out again, maybe for the second edition, or reprint it, or something? Or
can't quite comment on that too much.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, and
we're hard journalism here.
We are hard journalism. I have to give you the true feedback, just to let you know that the game is not so good with 3 or 4 players. It's great with 6 players, but 3 or 4. Well, 3 players, nobody really expects to play 3 players. Screw 3 players. But like 4 players, the problem is there's so much neutral territory, and siege engines can just take it over. And people have come up with variants and ideas on the forum to deal with it, and you can do that. But there's room here for a 4-player expansion or variant to spice things up, I think.
I hear you. I would like to speak on that if you wouldn't mind.
Go ahead.
As long as you brought it up. There's the gameplay experience for almost any game that you're working on is going to change depending on the number of players you have. I mean, it's natural. I don't know many games out there that it's the same experience with 2 players as it is with 3, 4, 5, or 6. It's going to change. The dynamic changes. But the game will likely offer a core experience, that sweet spot that they always refer to, where the number of players is perfect. I think, again, every game has that. And in our game, it's 5 to 6 players. That's the sweet spot of the game. That's where that's the core experience that we're trying to centralize around. If you analyze the original game, I think you can feel, too, that it was originally designed for that intent. It's where it's the most fun. It's where it's the most balanced. By its very nature, anything less than that requires some modification to that core experience. You have to do something to change that core experience in order to play with less players. We inserted neutral force tokens. Obviously you exclude a house or 2. That's some modification that has to do. And the farther away you go from that core experience, the harder it is to balance properly without changing the actual core experience. So in our case, when we're making changes and modifications to kind of shift downwards towards the less amount of players, we have to make sure that we don't harm that core experience itself. And that was the toughest part. So we're still very proud that the 5 to 6 player game is, I think, very well done. It's just that the farther away you go from that core experience, it gets tougher to balance. So. But you're right. The Storm of Swords addressed that specifically for that reason. In the first edition, it had the same issue, or a similar issue, and they came out with the Storm of Swords to kind of address that. I'm not going to say what's going to happen in the future of this edition, but if the first edition came out with Storm of Swords to fix this, I would certainly love if the second edition did too.
Cool. And now I'm going to give you my proposal called the Battle for the North Expansion. What I think would be cool is...
Hold on, I got to get a pen here. All right.
Okay. I'll email it to you later. But yeah, I'm gonna read. I have my proposal. Okay. So Battle for the North, four players, a zoomed-in map, but on the north. You'll like this because you like Stannis, and like the bottom of the map would be like Moat Cailin, and the teams would be Stannis, House Baratheon, like their House Bolton, House Greyjoy at the least. And depends where you started, but like Greyjoy could have Torrhen Square, Deepwood Motte, maybe have Iron Islands on the edge. No ships again, like Sword and Swords Expansion. Just have like you can move on those arrows. And Bolton would be in Dreadford, Winterfell, or you could change where you have in the time frame, and that would depend who has Winterfell. But I think there's a lot of potential. You could have Theon as a hostage, just like you have the hostages. And like this is going to mean nothing to you, Kyle and Mimi, but to people who play Storm of Swords, you could have hostages. So you have Theon as a hostage. Stannis could be at the wall. You could have bidding for the wall. You could have trying to get the other houses to join you. Like there's so much potential there, I think, and I think. Mm-hmm. And maybe you guys are working on it right now and you can't say anything, but great minds think alike, so.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. And you could get, just like Storm of Swords was getting claim, you're trying to get claim to the north. It might not just be as simple as getting a number of territories. You're trying to get a claim, you're trying to get bids. Maybe the others come in somehow with like the cards. And what would be really cool is if you somehow put Seaguard and the twins at the bottom, so you could go and kill them. Like you could kill the phrase. So, yeah. So that's the Battle for the North idea. But more seriously, actually, somebody has made an expansion. I was curious what you guys thought about it. This was before the second edition came out, or if you even heard about it. But there's like the 9-player one. Have you heard about that? Like there's like a 9-player, but they said that they had permission to do that.
Yep,
so.
That was first edition, and it was awesome. It was so cool. I really, really liked it.
Yeah,
I was very, very impressed. What they did. They squeezed in, what is it, three more houses, because 9 players. They squeezed in 3 more houses into a very condensed area.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool.
Targaryen was one of them for sure, and I think like
Targ, Tully, Aaron, I think are the 3 missing.
He had dragons.
One thing about the game, I was watching reviews and stuff before the podcast today. Can you tell us about the wildling element?
The mechanic?
Yeah, how does that of just random wildling attacks?
So
you have to bond together with the other players, or
okay. At the beginning of every round, before anything actually happens, you draw these cards and you resolve these cards. They do all sorts of things. We mentioned it previously. There's a chance that it can make new units come out, or that this shifts your supply track, or all sorts of things. And one of the things that those cards can do is they can make the wildling track move up. It's kind of the strength of the wildlings building on that track. The track of 0 to 12, and also in that deck, there's a card that says the wildlings attack. When that card is drawn, whatever strength that track is at, those wildlings are going to simultaneously kind of try to hurt everybody. And you have to bid power, which is a kind of little bidding game, secretly put power tokens into your hand and kind of reveal them. You add up how much power everyone's simultaneously bid together, and if that is higher than the value of the wildlings, you are all victorious. There's a deck of wildling cards that on top says what happens if the wildlings win. If they win, the lowest bidder suffers a major penalty and everyone else suffers a minor penalty.
Oh.
Then on the bottom of the card, it says what happens if the Night's Watch, if the rest of the players together win. And in that case, only the highest bidder gets a bonus. So it's this game. It's a bidding game, basically. That little mechanic is all a bidding game, kind of squished into the game there.
Okay, very interesting. Now, do the others attack at all?
They're not specifically.
No, I don't think.
No others. Okay, all right. That's just the threat that we don't talk about. Okay.
Yeah. But the cool thing about the wildlings is, in fact, sometimes you can even let them get through on purpose, like depending on the situation. Like you may want them to come through, or like you don't always have to fight them off, and you can't always fight them off anyways. So it makes the game really interesting. Good. Almost on the questions. No, this has been long. A couple more, if that's good.
I'm enjoying it. Go ahead.
Cool. Yeah. So I didn't know, but apparently, like there's an Elder Signs like app or something like where you can play FFG game online. Is there any chance that we might get like a computer or online version of Game of Thrones, the board game?
No comment on that.
Well, no comment doesn't mean no. So I like that.
I'm not saying no. But.
Good. Okay. So how does FFG aware that know that people are playing the game also by mail, like the online thing? Do they know about that?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're aware of that happens. There's nothing wrong with that. I kind of am indifferent. I don't really care personally, and I haven't heard anything at the company that would say.
Pretty much everyone who does that has bought the game, in fact, multiple copies. They've moved beyond playing, because the thing is, you can play it with your friends, but let's say you don't have many friends to play the game. Let's say you don't have any friends, and you want to play the game, but you bought it, or you played in the entirety of it. You can then go play with people in Europe, right? You can do slow games, and I do that, and it's great. And in fact, and they're all really good, so you get to challenge yourself, right? It's like the Masters of Game of Thrones.
And you probably don't have any friends because you played this game too much with original friends. And
no, I do, because remember I told you I always play honestly, right? Like
that's right,
people resent me for winning, but they're like, like I didn't betray them. I just beat
They're in
them.
awe of your skills, your manly skills.
Yeah. Okay.
I've never done it, but it looks cool. I don't have any problem with it.
Cool. Good. That's that. Okay. So now here's more of a side question, but still relevant because a lot of people listening will be interested. So Boardgamegeek is a website that has different board games like Game of Thrones, and you chat about in forums there. And I'm just curious, does FFG read the boards at all?
I have to answer personally here because like it's kind of a personal thing there. Yes. Unfortunately, we do.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
yes. We're constantly suggested not to. The senior members are constantly saying this is not a good idea. Don't read these. Yeah. But it's impossible. I mean, it's impossible to ignore. You put your heart and soul into this kind of product, and you want to see what the reception is. But you just have to learn. And I've been at the company now for over 3 years, and I'm just now learning to let those individual comments kind of bounce off you, because if you don't, you're just riddled with holes.
Yeah.
And they can really, really hurt.
Well,
but it's the consumer's right to do it. I have no problem with them voicing their concern. Absolutely not. It's just the reading part. It's me. It's that you can't when you're reading it, you kind of have to go a little bit cold. If, for example, we always joke about this, but if a consumer doesn't like a new flavor of Doritos, they just won't buy it. But if a consumer doesn't like a game that we make, they spend every waking hour posting permanent reminders for the world to see that, how much we've failed at that. I doubt there's that kind of comment on a Dorito website about the failed, new flavor of split pea soup.
Well, as Kimi knows, though, you get those comments on a podcast site, so
Yeah.
I think you're feeling his pain probably sometimes. Like what it's like to curious to see what people think, and you'll get all kinds of feedback there.
I'm just saying the people who care that much about Doritos probably have trouble with mobile skills, typing, so you're not going to hear as much backlash from them. But
Keyboard have all the chips. It's like cheesy keyboard. So
keyboard is too filled with detritus and crumbs for them to type out an angry letter to Doritos. But no, it's hard when something's a labor of love, and the type of interest that we have in Song of Ice and Fire particularly attracts a lot of very passionate, neck-bearded individuals who are sticklers for detail.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. The one area that we actually do find very useful for the forums and such is FAQ creation. So we pay attention to that. If there's an issue with a rule or even just a slight confusion, and people are asking a lot of questions, like what's going on here? Why does this rule work? We will pay attention to that, and we will make resolution through an FAQ. So
that's good to know, and I'm glad. And I feel like. This may not be officially known, but I think I've affected the FAQ at times because I've disagreed or agreed with things, and it's changed. I'm like, maybe they read my post and agreed with me. But in fact, I'm going to tell us the story here where we were debating some rule, and where Christian T. Peterson, actually the designer, showed up, and because I didn't say anything bad, but I kind of said, this rule change, it's kind of underthought and a quick answer to it or something. So it wasn't like an insulting thing, but it was still. I was like, I personally feel this is an underthought change. And then Christian shows up and he's like, hey, well, this is always a rule in the game. In fact, I personally feel it's an important part of the game. And then I was like, you don't have to say you personally feel. You designed the game. It is an important part of the game. But we had a good discussion after that, showed him stuff, and it was good. And then a bunch of people came and kind of flamed Christian, and then he didn't even bother to respond after that. So it's like, you can have a good discussion, but show some respect here when you're having that discussion, right?
Yeah, he won't argue with you. He's not going to argue with you in the forums, but he will pick a point to make. If he feels there's a point to be made, he'll make a point and then back away.
Yeah. But I like that you have that interaction with FSG. Even if you guys are told not to go there, keep reading. Just have a tough skin, and it's good. Okay, it looks like we're pretty much through the questions. I'm just scanning them because as we have you here, I want to make sure we get every single question. But it looks like we're good to move on. Oh, okay. my rules question. Did you see that? Do you want to talk
Yeah.
about that or no?
That's fine.
So I was just curious, and again for people who play the game, so like why is it that if you play, why is it if you play Consolidate in the C area, it doesn't do anything for you, at least at first glance, but if it gets raided, it counts as a pillage.
When I read that you had a question about that, I was kind of shocked. I mean, I've read the forums and stuff. I see it was a slight issue, but I'm really curious about your personal opinion. Why is it an issue for you?
Well, I mean, like, it's not even an issue because we don't. When I play the game, this is related to the point where when we're talking with Christian is you always have to put an order everywhere, or if you run out, what do you do? Mm-hmm. And when if you play the game properly, people know what they're doing. Then it's not really, like, it rarely comes up, and you just not put an order there or something, right? But like if you abused it, it would be a problem because you could be like, oh, you're my ally, don't put any orders near me. And if you did that, that would break the game. But if you play it properly, you don't really need to have the rule. You must play things. And the Consolidate on the ocean is just because you must play something, so you have something there. So like there's something could be there. So it doesn't really come up because I don't even play Consolidates on oceans. But it's not a problem. I was just curious.
Yeah. If you're curious further on the ruling, it was brought up on the forums, and somebody asked me through email, and I answered them through the email. The reasoning behind it was this. There's a couple of reasons why. First, my take on rulings such as this is to interpret the written rule as literally as possible.
Okay.
Our goal is to make those rules set in stone as much as we can. When we write them, we try to make them as finite as possible, with the least amount of ambiguity. Sometimes ambiguity sneaks in. Sometimes it happens, and the rules need to be fixed through a FAQ or an errata, but that should be a very rare situation. So when a question comes up, we read those rules and we really just try to, does this answer the question or not? And in this case, I felt that it did. It was pretty clear that the rules told you exactly what to do. So that was the first thing that I thought when I heard the question. I tried to interpret it, and I did. Second, from a thematic standpoint, and after I started thinking about it more, this made sense to me. Pillaging at sea is piracy. That is what it is. As simple as that. And that is not just for an afterthought. This is something that occurred previously, and it was intentional in conjunction with the rule about trading with the free cities.
Yeah,
it's a small rule, but it's there. It basically is kind of just a small simulation of the fact that these ports that you have and these territories that you have on land that are next to sea areas are sending small little ships with goods off to the free cities to trade. So we had to kind of simulate piracy. That was the effect of pillaging at sea.
Yeah. The only point was just like you don't get any benefit at first glance from having a Consolidate there. You're not going to get any money, so what are they pillaging? But like that's beyond a literal interpretation.
It stems from the issue. I mean, like you said, it stems from the issue, not that you would place it on a Consolidate on the sea, because obviously it doesn't do anything, but rather when you run out of tokens, and then you're forced to put one there, right?
Yeah.
That's what where the issue stems from, and that is so if the question was formed in that context, like why is that an issue? Why don't we have enough tokens in the game? It's simply a matter of punchboard space. We ran out of punchboard space.
Okay.
We could have reduced the number of because we had talked about throwing in a blank token, or a couple blank tokens.
Yeah.
So if you just ran out, you put a blank token on there, but it would have to cut into other punchboard space that was too valuable.
Okay. Well, that's good. Good to know. And in fact, then people on the boards come up with reasons. Like Eric came up with, well, you could put Consolidate there, so you could resolve that first and save your other one on land later. So there's an advantage you get from placing on ocean. This is the counter. So people come up with ways to justify it. You get that, like if you put a Consolidate on water, you could resolve that first and then do your one on land later. Like that's an advantage.
It gives you a chance to stall.
Yeah, I guess it's all, and then this is the counter that. Well, then you can get pillaged. So, anyways, that was a very obscure rule, but thankfully we're done with questions. So another chance for you, Jason, if there's anything you want to promote from FFG related to the board game, or just anything FFG and any other board game that's coming out soon, here's a chance to mention it.
I'm not a marketing guy, so I don't specialize in that. I mean, you ask one of our marketing guys, and they'll shoot you a great answer. But I don't have anything off the top of my head.
Well, we'll put a link when we publish this, like to the site or something, or to the
definitely definitely put a link. The Dance with Dragons print on demand is a small card pack that is available on our website. You can probably post a link to that too as well.
Yep, I'll put that up there. Yeah, and if you want to see some fine analysis on the game, just go to Boardgamegeek and read my posts where I talk about strategies for that game, specifically the variant.
A little bit of self-promotion
Yeah,
there.
well, there's not a lot of discussion going yet on the variant, and I want to get some more discussion because there's tons of discussion on the second edition, and in fact, you can see how well it's being received is because there's 47 play by email or games going on, 47 going on at a time. It's flooding the forums. Like people are playing it not only with their groups, they're playing online, all this stuff. Like all across continents. So this is being like it's big right now.
Awesome.
Okay, so how are you feeling for staying another 20 minutes to do the chapter, or how are you feeling right now?
I totally do. Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. But the chapter that we are doing is chapter 21 of A Clash of Kings. Bran, I don't know, the 3 or 4. I don't actually have the number. Which Bran is it? Bran
3.
Bran 3.
This is only the third Bran chapter. I feel like we've done 50.
I don't think this is 3.
Yeah, it is Bran.
It is the third in A Clash of Kings.
Oh,
But not total. Yeah, we started because we use Tower of the Hand to. Do you go to any of the websites like Tower of the Hand or Westeros?
Absolutely.
Oh, you do? Yeah, cool. And you'll soon be favoriting Podcasts of Ice and Fire in your favorites.
Yep.
So.
Favorites, homepage, I mean.
Well, once he sees your picture, Mimi, it'll be.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay.
And never wasting an opportunity to pit me out.
Yeah. Okay, so we need a summary. Do you want to do it?
Yeah, sure.
Go
I
ahead.
don't have anything written, but it's a pretty simple chapter. We're at Winterfell, and we're in the Great Hall. Bran starts riding in on his horse in the Great Hall for the Harvest Feast. A lot of the men of the North have gathered for the feast and everything when Mara and Jojen Reed arrive to pledge their loyalty to Winterfell and join the feast. Bran retires to his room. He has a wolf dream where he runs into Mara and Jojen. He's touched by Jojen and wakes immediately from the dream. And that's this chapter.
Cool. So what we do basically is when we read it, we might have circled some things or thought of some comments, and we're just going to just move to the chapter. And you as well, if you have anything to say about anything, just either bring it up or jump in. So that's what we got here.
Live discussion. First of all, I have to apologize that it's a Bran chapter, Jason.
Hey, I like these Bran chapters. I think they give you information and character stuff without being boring. But
It's not a Brienne chapter, so thank God.
yeah, yeah.
Aw.
Yeah, there you go.
That's just me. That's just my personal opinion.
You weren't a fan of her wanderings?
No.
Feast?
Yeah.
No.
By the way, one of the Brienne cards is like in the game, in the board game or something, is like super ugly. I need to find the drag one with like orange hair or something.
Well, she should be ugly.
I know,
That's
but
the
it's like
thing.
let me see if I can find it.
But oh god, is she
mean?
ugly? What?
Rude, so rude. You know, I feel like the last time I was on the podcast, we did a Bran chapter.
It might have been.
I think that's the last chapter recap I did was when he was talking about the Harvest Feast. They were planning for it right before.
Well, good follow up then, because they have the feast here.
We have the feast here. Bran's probably still upset.
Actually, somebody on the forums noted that some of the songs in here, like I heard the burning of the ships. I thought, is that maybe about the Lannister ships that got burned during the rebellion? But somebody noted that this is actually a bit of foreshadowing. Like the burning of the ships could be Blackwater. What are the other ones?
Iron Lances.
Lances, maybe like Greyjoy is coming in. So that was interesting.
I always forget how many songs that George has kind of populated this world with.
Yeah.
The same one surfacing over and over again, like the Bear and the Maiden Fair and the Reigns of Castamere, but every now and then he mentions another one. It's kind of interesting to see if it might resurface later.
But what you won't forget is the food, though, because there's lots of food here, and this is where the Feast of Ice and Fire got half its recipes, I think. Have you heard of the Feast of Ice and Fire, by the way, Jason?
Yeah. We hosted something for them at one of our latest Days of Ice and Fire events.
Awesome, yeah.
We made some food and gave it to the people that came, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're really great ladies. Good friends of ours too. So
I like that Rickon in this chapter apparently has long, fabulous hair, and he bit the last person who tried to cut his hair. I like this information about Rickon already going absolutely batshit crazy.
Yeah, like
this is when he got his first taste for human blood, so he fits in Oscagos pretty well.
We also got to mention, I don't think anywhere else, this is totally random, but of Princess Marcella checking out Robb Stark.
I thought that was a better marriage alliance. That would have worked out.
Better marriage alliance. So do you think she was in her room crying the whole time when everybody was hunting down Robb Stark, when Joffrey was all after him? She was like, no, my love.
Well, I think it was just basic attraction there or something. But what it may be more than that is also in this, when Bran meets Mira here, he's like looking at her and he's blushing, and we know later on he actually develops a love or affection for her. So there's seeds of it, which is interesting.
Seeds of it.
Did you circle anything or notice anything when you read this, Jason, or anything you want to bring up?
No, I was going to just kind of play off you guys.
Okay, that's definitely cool. That's what we do.
That is what we do.
Well, given that, so I think Micken is a player because he's a.
Micken is a player?
Not only Micken, actually. So. Micken's got his hand down somebody's bodice, and who's the other guy who they come across somebody doing a different kind of riding. Is what they say. Was that?
Oh, that was the horse guy.
Right. The master.
Joseph.
Yeah, that's how he earned the title.
Yeah. Yeah, Hodor was pretty bedazzled.
Well, Hodor was a voyeur there.
He's like, damn. Okay. We get a lot of Reed information. Well, I mean, not a lot, but this is a chapter that really starts bringing the Reeds into the things and really showing that Howland Reed could be the whole missing link of this of the story or of Jon's parentage or whatever. He just has a lot of information about the past, and I think it's safe to assume we all think Howland Reed is still alive, right?
He's untouchable. I mean, he's in his little swampy castle, and nobody can find him or hit him. I mean,
But I'm curious. I was just reading this chapter, and did he survive the battle?
Yes.
Yeah, he did because he was there at the tower afterwards as well.
Yeah, Ned and Howland were the only ones who walked out of that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Does it say him leaving, or does it just say him like there, or?
Well, he had to father his kids later on, so.
Oh yeah, he didn't have his.
He did
Howland is still at the Tower of Joy.
They had his sperm sample taken before the battle. So
Oh man, what if they're not Howland kids? Did they say he's their dad?
Yes, and
I don't know.
I was reading this chapter, and the first time I was like, "What kind of shitty father just sends his like preteen kids out to a dinner party in his stead? Like, what is he doing, right?"
I think that's more Jojen's thing. Like he's got the green dreams or whatever, and he knows that he has to go. Like he probably asked to go. I think.
Could be.
Well,
maybe Howland Reed also has the gout. Sorry.
Does Howland Reed have the green seer ability as well? I mean, that might play into his previous what he's done in the past with the Tower of Joy or with the Knight of the Laughing Tree, or what's it called, Knight of the.
It was Knight of the Laughing Tree.
Yeah.
It was probably something more than just his skill with the spear that turned the tide with Arthur Dayne. Like he did something magical or tricky or warging or something that probably affected it. So yeah,
and he went to the Isle of Faces. Yeah. I mean, who does that, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's some theory that the guy, the guy in with the cloak in A Dance with Dragons who like meets Theon. Somebody was like, "Oh, that should be Howland Reed," but I don't. That doesn't fit his body type, let alone why would he be there? Oh. But it would be, if it was him, it'd be cool. I don't think it's him, but I think he's just chilling. Yeah, he's in Greywater Watch. He's got a party there. He's got some of Rob's generals there, and he's got
stuff. A party.
Yeah.
A party.
Yeah.
A frog
he's got
party.
A basket of blood oranges and frogs. So,
I'm really curious to see if those guys made it. What was it? Mormont, Mage Mormont,
and I think a Glover.
Glover.
Yeah. I think that's
where they were going. So I mean, that whole story that has to come up somewhere.
Yeah. Next book is coming up.
Yeah, that's what everybody said about this book.
Yeah. But this book was tied to A Feast for Crows. So yeah, how did you feel about A Dance with Dragons in general, like compared to the other books?
Me?
Yeah.
I just loved it. I loved it simply because it wasn't Feast. I hated Feast. I mean, not hated. I love the series, so I can't hate anything.
Yeah.
But it was much better than Feast, so I was very pleased.
You liked Lord Wyman Manderley, right? Like you're a Manderley supporter.
That was so cool.
Yeah. And Bran here can already tell. Like Bran always he thinks he's a good guy, and Bran could tell this guy is the real deal.
Yeah, actually, when I reread this chapter for this podcast, that I picked up on that too. I was like, okay, so they're kind of hinting. I wonder if you kind of wonder when you go back and do these rereads, as you guys have done, I'm sure, if George has these long-term plans. Like, does he know what the Manderleys are going to turn into, or is he just like, I don't know, some fat jolly guy, and then later on, I'm going to make him a good guy, and a whole pie issue and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a debate we have. I mean, like you said, does he have that idea, or when he introduces him back into the storyline, in Dance or in Winds or whatever, does he go back to the chapters he's already written with that character and been like, oh, Bran thought he was a good guy, so I got to make him a good guy now. Okay, like what is he? It's interesting.
Well, he doesn't plan he's not a full planner of everything. He's more of a, like, he has the endpoints there, but as we've seen, he's put a lot of things in there that he's referenced, like the 1001 eye, like Bloodraven sort of thing. He's referenced that. He's referenced like Bran's face in the tree. Like, there's a lot of things from the first and second book that have come out in the fifth book. So,
have you read the Dunk and Egg stories, Jason?
I have not actually.
Okay.
Oh man.
I've not had a reason to yet. I wanted to, but every time I sit down to be like, okay, I should read those. I think it's more useful to me to read the original books again. So I've read them like 3 times now. I mean, but
well, now you have a reason to, because we're going to tell you, go read them. And
they're starting to get it's starting to touch on the current books.
Yeah.
Is it really?
It gives you information that is relevant to the current books. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's important. I should do that then. Because like I work on these kind of things, so I need to know the information, and oftentimes I'm doing research that is outside of, like, for example, in Dunk and Egg, if there is a tidbit of information that I need to know to make a game based on it, that's important. But every time I go to research, I've never had to pull information from it. Yeah. So then I just look at the book and I say, oh well, I don't have to read it yet, but eventually I will.
I would say the third Dunk and Egg novella is really when it starts to become related with, Dance with Dragons. There's everything, but really just the information about the Blackfire Rebellion and how that ties into the Bran chapters and Dance with Dragons, I think is really interesting.
I think it's such an exciting miniseries. It gives information worth reading. Then if you're still thinking about it, you can check out A Flight of Sorrows ebook where Mimi wrote about it. But she analyzed
I mean, you're so good at this.
Marketing machine over here. Now that's a board game I would like to see, the Blackfire Rebellion board game.
Oh wow, yeah, that would be awesome.
Would fit into would be the Westeros board game, like the fighting, the Westeros, like Battles of Westeros. You could have battles from the Duncan Age era in there. So
yeah.
I'm assuming you're referring to the Brendan Rivers storyline. That's where that's
part of it.
Yeah, Brendan Rivers and just
General Baxter. But yeah,
that's when you mentioned that it's the Duncan Egg series is starting to play into the new books. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's another character that shows up too.
Yeah.
Little snot-nosed.
Oh yeah,
character.
That's the style. Yeah.
The funny thing, when we got Dance of Dragons in the office, we immediately got it, and everyone was reading it as fast as they can because you have to work on it and stuff. But you're finding yourself you have to skip forward to certain chapters because they're relevant to you and the current things you're doing. So you're just like sadly kind of reading these spoilers near the end of the book that you haven't even read yet.
Oh
yeah, but you have.
I feel like I would hate
that.
It's so fun. Yeah. Nice.
Okay, what else we got here in the chapter?
Once again, I apologize. It's a Bran chapter.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's Fire by Ice and Fire, which is cool. That's cool to see.
Yep, we hear that. Why do you think that the Crannog men never responded to any of the summons before?
Were they ever really summoned, though? Maybe just that was a deal with Ned and Howland, just to let him do his thing over there, or maybe he needs to be there. He knows too much to.
Yeah. Is that the deal? Is Ned like, you're never to leave your house again because you know too much about John or whatever the case may be? Was that a bargain they struck up? But now that Ned's finally dead, he can.
Well, the other theory is that maybe Howland
kids out.
He did everything. He might have got injured. Like he might not be able to get around easily. Like he saved Ned, got injured. He didn't die. That's the other idea. So he didn't like to travel.
Yeah, Ned gets really sad.
Yeah, that's when Howland's hand got chopped off, blocking the sword.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Interesting.
Let's see what else we got in here.
It's a really brief chapter.
It is a brief chapter, yeah.
Considered, yeah.
That what also was brief was when Sir Roderick got rejected by Lady Hornwood.
Nice segue. Aw.
Yeah. Sir Roderick approached Lady Hornwood, but she made her excuses and took her leave.
She probably knows that he has the pox.
Well, but then he'd be called like Roderick the Poxy or something, because everyone has names like that. Like there's like Poxy Tom and Syphilic Sam or something. Like they always like weird.
That's not a name in there.
Hayhead and Skittrick. Yeah.
But what do you guys think about the dream that he has at the end?
He's basically warging, right? And both twice in the chapter. Mm-hmm. One earlier, one
as far as Jojen's sort of summation of the wolves the black one is full of fear and rage, but the gray is stronger than he knows. It's Jojen being creepy some more.
He is creepy. What if Jojen is Howland?
What's your reasoning for that?
I don't know. We don't know anything about the Kragnok men.
We don't have reasons.
Here's something that may blow your mind, Jason, is related to Jojen. That some people think that Jojen is dead and he's been eaten by Bran. Like they've made Jojen paste out of him.
What?
Yeah.
Oh wait, yes, I have heard this.
Have you heard of that one?
Soylent Green Seer.
Yeah. That stuff that he's eating that tastes like blood is from like Jojen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another. I wouldn't say crazy theory because it has some. I mean, I don't necessarily believe it, but it's worth talking about. Like, there's enough.
You kind of wonder, like, where they are. What happened to the other guys? I mean, where are they at? What are they doing?
Yeah. Where is Jojen? And Mira's crying all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Jojen does give the really creepy line in this chapter that's "Today isn't the day I die," or "This is not how I die."
One day I'll be in a pie instead. So.
Oh, he won't hurt me. This is not the day I died. So he knows how he's gonna die.
There's also the old Nan hot pie connection in here. She has some hot pie.
Old man hot pie.
Yep.
That's an interesting thought, Kyle, that you mentioned that he knows how he's going to die.
And so, yeah. Is that what makes him so fearless, the little guy?
Yeah.
What is it?
Does everyone hate the phrase in this chapter? In general?
What chapter don't you hate the phrase in?
Right? Just about every chapter. I don't know. I don't know that there's a lot more to it. I know Bran chapters usually have a little more depth, but this is like Bran goes to a party, has a dream, meets a girl.
Yeah. I'm going to take a quick look at the forum, see if anyone else has suggested stuff, and I think that's probably it for the chapter. So let's see if people have said anything. Ooh.
Jason, did you say you went to Brown?
Yeah.
So you're Rhode Island then?
Not Brown University.
Oh.
I'm not Ivy League. That's I went to the University of Minnesota. The University of Minnesota. A branch of that, and then after that I went to Brown College, which is also here in Minnesota.
Oh, okay, all right, misheard you. There we go.
I wouldn't think that the Brown would be as like on the forefront or advanced to come up with like a game designing thing. It's usually a smaller place that would.
It is, yeah, they're smaller.
Like that, right? Like.
Okay. Sorry, just a Rhode Islander. I just heard Brown, and I was like, oh, somebody. I was mistaken. La-ba-da-ba-da.
Some people were saying, what if Sir Arthur Dayne was a jerk? But there's no evidence for that. I guess they're saying like maybe he's more it would be interesting if he was more complicated than just this shining knight. But we don't have any evidence of that beyond the fact that like George complicates things. So
yeah,
really accept that.
I think that's it. I think
that's it. I think we're done. Yeah. Thank you for staying with us, Jason, for a super long.
It's fine with me.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah. Good. Make sure you take a gift bag with you, lemon cakes and all that. There.
I'm taking the rest of this Dornish wine, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, you best.
Oh, Dornish. Dornish is the best. You have to, yeah.
That's what we specialize in.
Yeah.
Take a few a few flagons.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
You can off the episode, Mimi. Yeah, go ahead. Boom.
What?
Yeah, like,
No. I'm just here. You do it.
No, I've done so much. Like, you can do the whole finish off episode. And
oh, I don't want to finish.
Mommy and Daddy are fighting.
I mean, you finish what you started.
Okay, that's the best part. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks again to Jason for joining us. And check us out on our website, our forums, Facebook, Twitter. Is that every medium we're on there right now? Yeah.
That's just about everything, but y'all should definitely look at this board game and let us know what you think.
We'll put some links up when we publish this episode. Cool.
All right. Have a good night, y'all.
See you next time.